left the poor Omega orphans starving in the snow until the Alpha King stopped and knelt. The war was done. Snow fell relentlessly, blanketing the village in white silence. Alara's toes had gone numb hours ago. Bad sign, or good, she couldn't recall. Marcus, Papa, had explained frostbite once, his voice warm against the cold. One hazel eye, one blue, just like hers. Stay strong, little wolf, he'd said 3 years back, kneeling to her level. When it's over, wait at the oak marker. I'll come. She touched the gnarled trunk now, fingers stiff. Villagers shuffled past, eyes averted. No one stopped. No food, no pity. Just the wind's bite and her last copper coin, gripped tight, not for bread, for hiring help. Papa deserved fair pay for good work. She'd asked 52 people. Mathematics, someone said, would know. Her stomach twisted sharply. The landlady's words echoed, dead girl, out, but Papa promised. He never broke promises. A horn blared, deep and echoing off the mountains. The crowd scattered like leaves in a storm. Parents yanked children into doorways. Eyes down, a man hissed. Don't draw his gaze. Wolves came first. Massive, black-furred shadows with amber eyes that pierced the dusk. They paced beside war horses, breath steaming. Guards in gleaming silver armor flanked them, hands on hilts. At the center, a man on a stallion black as night. A fur cloak draped broad shoulders. Scars crossed his face, jaw, brow like tales of battles won. The air grew thick, heavy with fear. This was Alpha King Thorn, conqueror, kingdom breaker, the name that silenced taverns and frightened soldiers into line. Alara felt the fear ripple through the air, but it didn't touch her. She saw only strength. A leader of warriors. He might know Papa's fate. She stepped forward, boots crunching ice. A guard barked, halt, runt. His voice cracked the silence, but she kept walking. Mr. King, the world froze. His emerald eyes dropped to her, dark as forest depths. Swords rasped half free. Wolves growled low, hackles rising. The crowd held its breath, waiting for punishment, for blood. Have you seen my Papa? Alara asked, smiling up. He's a soldier. Eyes like mine. She pointed. The guards tensed. One drew steel. Majesty, shall I? Thorn raised a hand. Silence fell absolute. His jaw clenched. Then he dismounted, boots thudding heavily. The stallion snorted mist. He knelt in the snow, eye to eye. Scars pulled tight, a lone long child. 5 days here, 3 years waiting. She beamed. Thank you for ending the war. Now Papa comes home. His face shifted, something raw, quickly hidden. She threw arms around his neck, thin against his armored bulk. He went rigid as stone. The village exhaled in waves of shock. Whispers sparked. Why her? Cold out here, he said, voice rough like gravel. Go inside. Can't. Papa said wait. He'll find me. Thorn's gaze flicked away, muscle ticking. If he returns. When, Alara corrected. He grimaced. When, I'll leave word. She studied him. Papa's rule. Kind eyes mean good souls. Thorns were tired, weighted like chains, but kind. Promise. I am king. My word binds. She nodded. He stood, lifting her effortlessly onto the stallion. The crowd parted, murmurs rising. Guards mounted, wolves pacing close. Alara waved at staring faces. The castle loomed ahead, black stone carved into mountains, towers piercing clouds. Gates creaked open. Inside, warmth hit like a wave. Fires roared in hearths. Servants stared. Thorn set her down gently. Eat. Warm broth arrived, steaming, rich with meat. She sipped, belly filling for the first time in days. He watched from afar, expression unreadable. But in the shadows of the hall, another watched too. Dowager Queen Vesper, tall and elegant in dark furs. Her eyes narrowed on the girl. This waif, hugging her son like a commoner, disrupting order. Vesper's fingers tightened on her goblet. Weakness. It always started small. Alara finished her meal, eyelids heavy. A maid led her to a room with a bed soft as clouds, ceiling painted with stars. She curled under blankets, coins still clutched. Papa would come. The king promised. Sleep claimed her, deep and dreamless. Outside, snow swirled. Thorn stood at a window, staring into the night. The child's trust gnawed at him. Mismatched eyes, like Marcus's. Guilt stirred, old and sharp. He pushed it down. Tomorrow he'd search. For now, the castle held one more soul. As Alara slept soundly for the first time in days, Vesper whispered to a loyal guard in the darkened hall. Watch the girl closely. Weakness like her spreads like poison. What shadows lurked in the queen's heart, threatening to unravel everything. She hated him. Princess Lyra of the shattered southern realms stood in the castle courtyard, snow gathering on her shoulders like uninvited ghosts. The black stone walls rose around her, jagged against the gray sky. A fortress built for domination, not beauty. Her spine was steel, chin lifted in defiance. She had perfected over months of this forced charade, betrothed to the wolf who had raised her home. Peace, they called it. Submission, she knew. Her family's bloodline hung by this thread: marry the Alpha King, bind the kingdoms, ensure no more slaughter. But every drumbeat echoing from the pass made her fists clench beneath her sleeves. He was returning, victorious. Again. The air smelled of pine and iron, sharp and unyielding. Nobles clustered nearby, their whispers a low hum. He broke the last holdouts in a week, one said, voice laced with awe. Lyra didn't turn. Tyrants are always efficient. The woman fell silent, glancing away. Lyra had met Thorn only once, at the betrothal rite. He'd stood across the vast hall, presence like a storm front, tall, scarred, eyes a piercing green that held no mercy. She'd stared back, packing every ounce of loathing into her gaze. Yet, beneath it, a traitorous notice. He was striking, in the way a predator's grace could mesmerize before the kill. Broad shoulders honed by war, not luxury. Dark hair falling loose. She'd crushed the thought, buried it deep. He was the enemy, nothing more. Trumpets blared, sharp and commanding. Gates groaned open on iron hinges. The crowd straightened, breaths held. A black wolf bounded in first, massive, fur-absorbing light, muscles coiling like ropes under skin, shoulders level with a man's chest. The embodiment of northern nightmares. On its back, improbably, a child clung, small hands in fur, face pinched but unafraid. Lyra blinked, certain the snow played tricks. A guard stepped forward with a heavy cloak. The girl slid down, shivering but steady. The wolf padded behind a carved screen near the gates, standard for shifts, Lyra knew. Moments later, Thorn emerged, taller than memory served, hair damp from melt, framing a face etched with fresh scars. His eyes swept the assembly, cataloging, assessing. No weakness shone. He returned to the child, lifting her with care that jarred against his reputation. Those hands, scarred from sword and claw, now gentle. The girl nestled against him. "Your castle's so tall," she said, voice clear and trusting. Lyra glanced at the grim towers. Tall, yes. Imposing. Not welcoming. Thorn strode forward, child in arms. The crowd parted instinctively. His gaze found Lyra across the snow-dusted stones. For a heartbeat, something passed recognition, perhaps a flicker of regret. Or was it calculation? "Princess Lyra," he greeted, voice low and rough, like wind over gravel. She inclined her head, politeness glacial. "Your Majesty," no more. His expression shifted minutely, disappointment, then smoothed. He turned to the raised platform, throne waiting like a sentinel. Nobles eyed the girl. Whispers swelled, illegitimate, a secret from the war. Why parade her now? Lyra wondered too, curiosity edging her disdain. Thorn set the child down gently, then addressed the court. "She is under my protection." Simple, final. The girl looked up, beaming. "He's kind. Ended the war so all the papas come home. Now he'll help the hungry kids, and hurt soldiers too." A choked laugh escaped someone. Thorn's glare silenced it. 3 months passed. An advisor had urged opening the fortress to wars displaced. Thorn had refused flatly, efficiency over sentiment. Now his jaw tightened. The child's words hung in the air, innocent challenge. Vesper, the Dowager Queen, stiffened visibly, her elegant features sharpening. "Son, prepare the halls," Thorn interrupted, voice controlled but edged. "Wounded soldiers, orphan children, admit them. Feed them. Shelter them." Lyra's breath caught. The court rippled with shock. Vesper's hand clenched her skirt. This was not discussed. It is now. Nobles dispersed slowly, speculation buzzing like bees. Lyra remained, mind turning. What hold did this slip of a girl have? A conqueror bending to a child's whim. It unsettled her carefully built walls. Days blurred into routine. Lyra navigated the castle's echoey halls, avoiding Thorn, focusing on her people's needs, temple protections, custom preservations. One afternoon, a small figure collided with her near the archives. "Oh," the girl Ilara steadied herself, mismatched eyes wide. "Sorry, princess. I wasn't looking." Lyra knelt instinctively. "No harm. Are you lost?" "A bit. Searching for the king. For Papa News." Alara tilted her head. "You're marrying him, right? You're so pretty. He must love you a lot." Heat rose in Lyra's cheeks, unbidden. "Love is complicated." Alara clasped her hands. "But you're kind too, like him. You'll be a good family." Lyra's throat tightened. The girl's trust was a mirror, reflecting what she'd lost, innocence amid ruins. She offered her hand. "Come, we'll find him together." They walked, Alara's small steps quick beside Lyra's measured ones. For the first time in months, the castle felt less like a prison. The corridor opened to the training yard. Snow crunched underfoot. A sharp crack split the air a whip. Lyra froze. Alara gasped, then bolted forward. In the yard, a boy jerked against a post, welts rising red on his back as Alara screamed, "Stop hurting him." Would Thorn's mercy extend here, or would the king's true nature emerge? Crack. The whip sliced air, leather meeting flesh with a sound like thunder in miniature. Alara's heart lurched. She burst from the corridor's shadow, small feet pounding snow-dusted stone. The yard spread before her, ringed by black walls that trapped the cold like a fist. A boy, no older than 10, slumped against a wooden post, shirt torn away. Back a map of red lines. Guards stood rigid, one coiling the whip for another strike. The air reeked of sweat and iron tang blood. "Stop," Alara's voice pierced high and clear. Heads turned. The whip paused mid-arc. She didn't think. Papa had taught her, hurt people need help. Always. She ran, arms outstretched, planting herself between the boy and the lash. Her breath came in puffs, visible in the chill. The guard hesitated, whip drooping. "Move, brat. This ain't your business." "It is," Alara said, chin up. "Hurting kids is wrong." Laughter rippled from the guards, harsh, disbelieving. But Lyra stepped forward then, her gown whispering against stone. She placed a hand on Alara's shoulder, light but firm. "Enough," Lyra said, voice cool as the mountain wind. "The boy has suffered." The guards exchanged glances. One smirked. "Southern soft heart. This is discipline." Vesper emerged from an archway, furs draped elegant over her tall frame. Her presence commanded silence, eyes sharp as frost. She surveyed the scene, boy trembling, Alara defiant, Lyra unyielding. "What interruption is this?" Her tone cut clean. Alara turned. The Queen Mother. Papa said mothers had the softest hearts. Surely she'd see. "They're hurting him," Alara said, pointing. "Please make them stop." Vesper's lips curved faintly, not a smile, but something calculated. She glanced at the guards. "Continue. Weakness invites chaos." The whip rose again. Alara's stomach dropped. This wasn't right. Heroes fixed wrongs. Thorn was a hero. He'd saved her. The lash whistled. Alara spread her arms wider, shielding the boy. "No." A scream tore from behind Lyra's, raw with alarm. But the whip halted, inches from Alara's back. Footsteps thundered. Thorn stormed in, cloak billowing, face a mask of controlled fury. Guards dropped to knees. "Explain." His voice was low thunder. The lead guard stammered. "Discipline, Majesty." The boy shirked duties. Thorn's eyes swept the yard, the post, the welts, Alara's small form defiant. He moved closer, snow crunching under boots. Alara looked up, relief flooding warm. "You came." His gaze softened fractionally on her, then hardened on the guards. "Release him." The boy slumped free, caught by a guard. Vesper stepped nearer. "Son, order must hold. Leniency breeds disorder." Thorn didn't glance her way. "I decide what holds." He turned to the guards, breath steady, but eyes storm-dark. "No more whippings in this fortress. Ever." Murmurs rippled. Vesper's face tightened, a vein pulsing at her temple. But Thorn's word was law. Alara's smile broke wide, aching her cheeks. "Thank you." She flung arms around his waist, face pressed to his cloak, smelling of pine and smoke. He froze, body tense, as if unaccustomed to touch. Then, slowly, his hand descended, resting on her head. Fingers light, almost hesitant, a small gesture, but it lingered, warm against her hair. Alara felt it like a promise kept. Lyra watched from the edge, breath caught. This man, her enemy, the one who'd orchestrated ambushes that claimed her kin, now yielding to a child's plea. Conflict stirred in her chest. Hatred had been simple, a shield. But here, in the yard's fading light, she saw fractures. His hand on Alara's head wasn't command, it was vulnerability. A king who conquered worlds, uncertain with gentleness. Her wolf senses sharpened, his scent shifting, layered with regret beneath the strength. She looked away, pulse quickening. What if the monster was a mask? What if peace demanded seeing the man? The boy was led away, supported. Guards dispersed, whispers trailing. Alara pulled back, eyes shining. "You're good. Like Papa said heroes are." Thorn's hand dropped, expression closing. He nodded once, then turned, striding toward the halls. Vesper lingered, gaze on Alara like weighing a threat. Lyra met her eyes briefly, cold calculation there, rooted perhaps in losses long buried. The Queen Mother had survived wars too, but mercy, that she saw as fracture. Lyra took Alara's hand. "Come, little one." They walked inside, the yard emptying under gathering dusk. Alara chattered about stars on ceilings. Lyra listened, mind turning. The king's touch echoed in her thoughts, small, human, unsettling. That evening, preparations hummed for a private dinner. Thorn had invited them, perhaps a step toward alliance, or something more. Lyra smoothed her gown, steeling herself as wine poured at the table, and Thorn lifted his goblet. A tremor seized him, eyes darkening, body rigid. What hidden force twisted the king into beast, threatening to shatter the fragile peace he just built? Wine spilled like blood across the tablecloth. Thorn shoved back his chair, wood scraping stone with a screech that echoed in the private chamber. his face contorted, jaw locked, eyes shadowing to black. The goblet clattered, rolling in a crimson arc. Alara froze mid-bite, bread crumbling in her small fist. Lyra rose instinctively, heart slamming. Majesty? No answer. His breath came ragged, hands trembling as if strings pulled them. Then the shift hit. Not graceful, like tales of alpha control. Violent. Bones cracked sharp, reshaping with wet pops. Muscle tore and knit, fur erupting black and coarse. He collapsed forward, table buckling under weight, plates shattered, shards skittering. The wolf rose unsteady, claws gouging floor. Snarls ripped low, eyes wild, trapped, not commanding. Alara whimpered, but didn't flee. Lyra grabbed her arm. Back. Now the wolf paced jerky, breath heaving, shoulders brushing overturned chairs. This wasn't power. This was torment. Lyra's wolf stirred inside, sensing wrongness, scent acrid, like fear twisted with rage. Annie, Alara, stay behind me. But Alara slipped free, steps slow toward the beast. Lyra lunged. No, too late. Alara approached, hands loose, eyes steady. The wolf froze, snarl fading to rumble. She reached out, palm flat on muzzle. Fur warm under fingers. It's okay, she whispered. You're safe. The great chest heaved once, twice. Breathing slowed. Eyes cleared, green flickering back. The wolf sank to haunches, then belly, head dropping. Alara knelt beside, stroking steady. Silence fell, broken only by fire's crackle. Lyra exhaled, a mingling fear. A child taming what armies couldn't. The wolf slept. Alara curled against flank, her small form rising with each breath. Lyra stood alone in wreckage, mind racing. He'd been fine moments before talking, almost at ease. Then the wine. She crouched by spilled pool, inhaling deep. Red berries, spice, and beneath, bitter edge. Chemical, not natural. Her pulse quickened. Poison. She scanned food, sniffing plates. Nothing obvious, but wine his goblet most. She summoned Dara, a maid from southern lines, loyal and discreet. Samples. Every dish, every cup, to the alchemist. King's order. Test for anomalies. Report to me alone. Dara nodded, gathering shards quietly. Lyra turned back. The wolf stirred. Shift reversed fast, but she averted eyes. Dara slipped out. Good. Thorn lay prone by fire, skin slick with sweat, chest heaving. Unclothed. Lyra's cheeks burned. She grabbed his cloak, draping carefully. Kept gaze on hands. His scent enveloped pine, smoke, warm earth. Her wolf quieted, drawn in ways she fought. She glanced up. His eyes open, heavy-lidded, close. Green depths unguarded, soft. He reached, tucking stray hair behind her ear. Fingers lingered, light brush on skin. Lyra. Name a caress. Her breath hitched. Thoughts scattered. Then awareness flooded him. He blinked, scanning ruins. Face paled. The girl, safe. Lyra nodded to corner chair, Alara asleep under tapestry. Relief broke his exhale, jagged. I apologize. Shame colored it deep and raw. Lyra sat back. What was that? He looked away, firelight carving scars. Bursts, they come unbidden. Since when? Childhood, voice flat, but eyes betrayed old wound festering. He sat up slow, cloak clutched. Fighting helps, directs it, wars. They made it useful. Lyra saw it then. A boy told he was broken, channeling flaw into purpose. Kingdoms fell for it. Her anger stirred her people's cost, but pity edged in. Nuanced, human, useful, she echoed softly. Or excuse, he met her gaze, unflinching. Both, perhaps. Silence stretched, fire popping embers. Lyra leaned closer, despite herself. The girl, Elara, how to make her feel secure, he shifted, uncertain, king of realms, lost with a child. You seem insightful. Subtle plea. Lyra considered. Presence, not decrees. You, he nodded, defensive fading. I brought her here, then vanished into duties. Gentler now, he didn't deny. Armies bend to me, but a child's trust, vulnerability raw. Lyra's chest ached. She sees good in you. Do you? Question hung honest. Eyes locked. His scent intensified, wolf calling to wolf. Heat built, unspoken. She pulled back, pulse racing. This man destroyer, yet here, seeking counsel. Fractured, real, hours passed. Elara stirred, yawning. Thorn dressed behind screen, emerging composed. But Lyra noted steadiness, no tremor. The wine untouched since. She slipped away, mind on tests. Dawn brought the alchemist's sealed note, poison confirmed, chronic traces designed to mimic rage. Who dared dose the king? And for how long had shadows pulled his strings? The sealed note trembled in Lyra's fingers. Poison, chronic, mandrake derivative, slow dosed to inflame the mind without killing the body. Designed to mimic uncontrollable rage. Years of it. She stood outside Thorn's private study, door half ajar, firelight spilling gold across stone. Inside, he sat alone at the heavy oak desk, maps forgotten, head bowed over clasped hands. The man who had broken kingdoms looked suddenly small. She stepped in without knocking. Majesty. Her voice was quiet, deliberate. He lifted his head. Emerald eyes weary, guarded. Princess. She closed the door softly. No servants, no witnesses. She crossed the room and placed the alchemist's report between them. Read it. Thorn scanned the parchment. His face remained still at first stone. Then the paper creased in his fist. Impossible. Voice low, almost gentle. Denial. Lyra watched the fracture begin. The bursts aren't you. They never were. He stood abruptly. Chair scraped. You think someone poisoned me. For years. Rage flickered old habit, familiar armor. He paced to the window, back to her, shoulders rigid. My mother's wine cellars, my own table. Who would dare? But the question cracked at the end. Doubt crept in, cold and slow. He turned. Eyes searched hers. You believe this? Not accusation, plea. Lyra nodded once. I smelled it myself. Silence stretched thin. Thorn exhaled, long and ragged. He sank back into the chair, elbows on knees, face in hands. When he spoke, voice was quieter than she'd ever heard it. All those battles, all those decisions, I thought the rage was mine. A flaw I turned into strength. A bitter half-laugh. Useful, Lyra remained standing. It was useful to someone else, too. He looked up sharply. Recognition dawned slow, terrible. Vesper. The name dropped like a stone into deep water. No shout, just wait. The fire snapped. Thorn stared into flames, seeing something else entirely. Late autumn. Southern pass above Arden Valley. Ground frozen hard, breath clouding. Supply lines rooted through the narrow cut for 3 days straight. Marcus, steady, plain-faced soldier with mismatched eyes, had stood beside him the morning before. Something's wrong, sire. Ridge line feels off. Change the route. Thorn had brushed it aside. Shadows. We hold the pass. Halfway through, signal fires flared false on the heights. Decoy tracks north. Then arrows rained. Second wave sealed the rear. Ambush perfect terrain. Timing. Retreat impossible. Thorn remembered the moment. The shaft left the bow high above. Marcus had been 10 feet away, watching the ridge. No reason to be looking at Thorn in that exact second. Yet he was. Marcus moved before the arrow did, stepped into its path, hit square in the chest. Thorn caught him as he fell. Blood hot on hands. Marcus's breath bubbled, not afraid, concerned. You're not hit. Thorn shook his head numb. Marcus gripped his arm. Live, do more good than I could. Then, softer, find my girl, milestone on the north road. She'll wait. Eyes like mine, one hazel, one blue, promise me. Thorn had promised. Marcus died, looking at the sky, peaceful. Thorn sat with him until the fighting ended, then carried the body back himself. Buried him under stars. Kept the promise quiet. Guilt quieter still. The memory faded. Thorn's hands shook now not from poison, but memory. He saved me. I ignored his warning, and he paid. Voice cracked on the last word. Lyra stepped closer. You carried that alone. He looked at her raw, unguarded. I didn't know how to tell her. A small sound at the doorway. Alara stood there, nightgown trailing, eyes wide. She'd slipped in unnoticed. Heard enough. Papa, voice tiny. Thorn rose slowly. Alara, she stepped forward. You said he's coming home. Thorn knelt. Eye level, he can't. Gentle, final. He died saving me. Alara's face crumpled, not anger, just breaking. Tears welled, spilled. Because of you, Thorn nodded once. No defense. No excuse. Because of me. She stared at him, searching the man she'd called hero. Then turned and ran. Bare feet slapping stone. Door banged open. Gone. Thorn stayed on his knees. Didn't chase. Lyra touched his shoulder light, careful. He didn't flinch, just breathed, broken. Outside in the darkened corridor, Alara curled against cold stone, sobs muffled in her sleeves. Footsteps approached soft, measured. Vesper crouched, elegant skirts pooling. Face soft in the torchlight. Kind, almost maternal. She laid a gentle hand on Alara's head. "Your papa is alive, little one." Alara's sobs hitched, looked up, tear-streaked, hopeful. Vesper smiled, small, warm. "He lives, and I know exactly where he is." Alara stared into the Dowager Queen's steady eyes, heart pounding with impossible hope. "Come with me," Vesper whispered, quietly. What waited in the dark beyond the castle walls? "Come, child, he's waiting." Vesper's voice was honey-soft, hand extended in the dim corridor. Alara wiped her eyes, tears still wet on cheeks. Hope flickered fragile, like a candle in wind. Papa, alive. She took the hand, cool, steady, and followed, out through a side gate, snow-muffling steps. The castle loomed behind, towers fading in twilight. Forest swallowed them quick, trees thick, branches clawing low. Air smelled of damp earth, pine resin sharp. Alara's breath puffed white. "Is it far?" "Not much farther." Vesper's smile held, but her pace quickened. Path narrowed to deer track, then vanished. Scrub tugged at skirts. Unease stirred in Alara's chest, not fear yet, just wrongness. Like a puzzle piece forced. "Papa's really there. He misses you terribly." Vesper's tone warmed, almost maternal, but her eyes glanced back, watchful. Clearing opened sudden. Snow-patched ground, frozen hard in center. Edges shadowed, untouched white. Empty. Alara spun, heart leaping then sinking. "Where?" Vesper stood still, expression shifting, softness gone, replaced by calm resolve. She reached behind, drawing a bow from beneath her cloak. Arrow knocked smooth, tip dark-coated, southern fletching. Alara backed against a trunk, bark rough on palms. "You said," voice small, breaking. Vesper examined the arrow, tilting it to catch fading light. "History favors victors, little one, not the merciful." Alara shook head, confusion swirling. "Why?" Vesper's gaze steadied, not cruel, resolute, like a surgeon's cut. "Your death by southern arrow reignites the war, restores strength. But war hurts people." Alara's chin wobbled. Vesper stepped closer. "War forged this kingdom, made my son unbreakable. Peace, it softens him, makes him kneel to waifs like you." Flash of something deeper, pain buried. Vesper had lost a husband to old battles, a brother to betrayal. Mercy, to her, was the true poison. She dosed Thorn's wine, escalating since war's end, subtle spikes to stoke rage, prevent this weakening. Keep him the weapon she'd shaped. "I protected him," Vesper murmured, almost to herself. From softness, from loss. Alara's eyes filled. "Please, I want Papa." Vesper shook head slow. "You'll join him soon, in death." String drew taut. Arrow aimed true. Alara pressed flat, options gone. She screamed. "Papa," echo bounced off trees. Frantic thought, he promised. "Always find me." Thorn, the arrow loosed. Impact hit sideways. Massive force slammed Alara to snow edge. Breath knocked out, stunned, then snarls raw, ragged. The black wolf stood in clearing's heart, arrow buried deep in shoulder. Blood matted fur. Vesper's eyes widened shock, then then fury. No, Thorn's legs buckled slow. Front first, then hind, Alara scrambled up across frozen ground, threw herself against him. Get up, please. Fur warm, but breaths labored, shallow. Forest erupted. Lyra burst through trees, boots pounding, guards behind, swords drawn, purposeful. Her eyes swept scene. Vesper with bow, wolf down, Alara clinging. Guards, Lyra commanded, voice steel calm. Seize her. They moved swift. Vesper dropped bow, arms pinned. Unhand me. Struggle brief, futile. This was mercy, she cried. For the Empire. Lyra crouched by Thorn, hand on flank. Pulse weak. Poisoned him too, didn't you? To keep the wars alive. Vesper's face twisted, not denial, but justification. He was softening. I had to, for strength. Guards dragged her back, chains clinking. Her screams faded into woods. You'll see, mercy destroys. Alara wept into fur. He's hurt, because of me. Lyra pulled her close. Not you, her, but Thorn's breath slowed. Despair rose. Alara's hands pressed wound, willing it better. Warmth bloomed not from blood, from her. Faint glow shimmered under palms, soft blue like her eye. Wound knit slightly, bleeding easing. Lyra gasped. What? Alara stared at hands, wonder-cutting grief. Magic, awakening, hidden all along. Guards formed perimeter. Lyra signaled healer fetch. Alara stayed, glow pulsing faint. Thorn's eye opened sliver green, pained, grateful, as Thorn lay still in the snow. Alara's glowing hands held the wound at bay. A latent power stirring within her. What ancient gift hid in the orphan's blood? And how would it change everything? Thorn's chest barely rose. Snow still clung to his black fur. In the clearing, blood dark beneath it. The arrow shaft jutted obscene from his shoulder, fletching, quivering with each shallow breath. Guards formed a tight ring, torches spitting in the wind. Lyra knelt on one side, hand pressed to the wolf's flank, steadying herself as much as him. Alara knelt opposite, small palms flat over the wound. The faint blue glow hadn't faded. It pulsed gentle, rhythmic, like a second heartbeat. Blood slowed. Torn flesh knit in tiny, impossible increments. Lyra watched, breath held. Magic raw, untrained, born of desperation. Alara's mismatched eyes were fixed on Thorn's face, tears tracking silent paths down cheeks. Please, she whispered, don't go. The glow brightened once sharp, then soft. Thorn's body shuddered, bones shifted with a low crack, not violent this time. Controlled. Fur receded. Skin returned. The arrow clattered to frozen ground, tip clean of blood. Wound closed to a raw pink line. He lay human again, naked save for the cloak someone draped quickly. Breathing deepened. Steady. Alive. Alara's hands dropped. Glow winked out. She swayed. Lyra caught her, pulling the child against her chest. You did it, she murmured into Alara's hair. You brought him back. Alara buried her face in Lyra's shoulder, small body shaking not from cold, but from the weight of what she'd done. Thorn's eyes opened slow, green, clouded at first, then sharpening. He found Alara immediately. "Little one," voice hoarse, cracked from pain. He pushed up on one elbow, winced, then reached. Alara crawled forward, curling into his side. His arm came around her, careful, reverent. Lyra stayed close, one hand still on his shoulder. Their fingers brushed, brief, electric. Neither pulled away. They carried him back on a litter of cloaks and spears. Castle halls blurred past. Healers swarmed the king's chambers, bandages, salves, murmured spells. But Alara refused to leave his side. She sat cross-legged on the bed's edge, one small hand resting on his wrist. The glow didn't return, but the contact seemed enough. Thorn slept again, deeper this time. Healing sleep. Lyra stayed too. Vigil shared in silence. Candles burned low. At some point, in the quiet hours before dawn, Thorn stirred. Eyes found hers across the dim room. "You came," he said. Simple fact. Gratitude layered beneath. Lyra nodded. "We all did." He looked at Alara, sleeping now, head on his chest. "She saved me." "Her gift," Lyra said softly. "It woke when you needed it." Thorn's free hand lifted, slow, deliberate, and covered Lyra's where it rested on the coverlet. No words, just the weight of his palm, warm, scarred, steady. Her pulse jumped. She didn't move. Neither did he. The touch lingered, small, human, more honest than any declaration. In that quiet, something shifted. Not grand, not spoken, just present. Later, when healers had gone and dawn grayed the windows, Thorn spoke again. Voice low. "Alara," the girl stirred, blinking awake. He met her gaze. "I failed your father once. I won't fail you," he swallowed. "If you'll have me, I would be your father, not to replace him. Never that, but to stand where he can't, to keep you safe, to love you as my own." Alara's lip trembled. Tears welled fresh. She nodded small, certain, then threw arms around his neck. "Yes," she whispered against his shoulder. Thorn held her close, eyes closing. A single tear slipped down his scarred cheek, unseen by anyone but Lyra. She looked away, throat tight. Mid-morning. Thorn bandaged, stubborn, insisted on seeing Vesper. Lyra walked with him to the lower cells. Iron doors clanged. Vesper sat on a stone bench, posture straight despite chains. No rage, no pleading, just calm, almost regal. Thorn stopped outside the bars. "Why?" One word, heavy. Vesper lifted her chin. "I lost everything to mercy once." Voice even. "Your father, my husband, spared an enemy lord. The man repaid him with a knife in the dark. I held him while he bled out. Watched our strength bleed away with him." She met Thorn's eyes. "I swore no weakness would touch you. No softness. No forgiveness that invites betrayal. I dosed your wine to keep the fire alive, to keep you the weapon this kingdom needs." A pause. "I thought I was saving you." Thorn's jaw worked. Conflict carved deep lines in his face, anger, grief, the long echo of a boy raised by a grieving mother's iron will. "You shaped me into a monster to prevent one." Vesper's gaze didn't waver. I shaped you into a king. He stepped closer to the bars. No, you shaped me into your grief. Voice cracked just once. I'm done carrying it. He turned away. You'll be exiled, not executed. Mercy. The word hung deliberate. Vesper's composure fractured brief raw. She said nothing more. Thorn walked out. Lyra fell in beside him. Neither spoke until they reached the upper halls. Then he stopped, looked at her. I don't know how to be soft. Quiet confession. Lyra touched his arm, light, steady. You already are. You just didn't see it. He exhaled. Nodded once. Outside, wind carried whispers through the castle, loyalists murmuring in corners, old soldiers uneasy with the Queen Mother's fall. Peace felt thin, fragile. As Thorn leaned against the battlements later that night, staring into the dark mountains, a guard approached with urgent news. Sire, there are whispers of rebellion. Vesper's old captains are gathering. Was the peace he'd begun to believe in already cracking beneath his feet? Alara's hands glowed again, this time on purpose. In the lower hall turned infirmary, sunlight slanted through narrow windows onto rows of cots. Refugees filled them. Soldiers missing limbs, children with hollow cheeks, women clutching blankets like shields. Alara moved between them, small and determined, palms hovering over a boy's burned arm. The blue light bloomed soft, steady. Skin knitted, pain eased. The boy exhaled, eyes wide with wonder. It doesn't hurt anymore. Alara smiled, small, tired, but real. Good. Lyra watched from the doorway. The girl had barely slept since the clearing. Yet here she was, giving what she had left. Lyra felt something shift inside her chest, pride, protectiveness, a quiet ache. She stepped in, knelt beside Alara. You're exhausting yourself. Alara shook her head. They need it, like Papa would have wanted. Lyra brushed a damp curl from the child's forehead. No words, just the touch. Alara leaned into it for a moment, then moved to the next cot. Outside, the castle breathed differently. Halls once silent now carried voices, laughter, low conversation, the clatter of shared meals. Wounded men walked with canes. Children chased each other through corridors. Peace, fragile but growing roots. Thorn had ordered it, and somehow it held. Late afternoon found them on the battlements. Wind sharp off the mountains, carrying pine and distant snow. Thorn walked beside Lyra, steps measured, shoulders still bandaged beneath his cloak. They hadn't spoken much since the cell. Words felt heavy, unpracticed. He stopped at the parapet, hands braced on stone. Below, the valley stretched, scarred fields slowly greening again. I thought peace would feel like surrender, he said quietly. Lyra leaned beside him. It doesn't. A long breath. It feels like breathing after holding it too long. He turned his head, met her eyes. I destroyed your home, your people. I can't undo that. No plea, just truth laid bare. Lyra looked out at the valley. No, you can't. Silence stretched, honest, painful. Then she spoke softer. But you stopped. That matters. Thorn's knuckles whitened on the stone. I was raised to see mercy as fracture. My mother, he stopped, swallowed. She lost too much. I let her grief become mine. I thought strength was never bending. Lyra turned fully toward him, and now his gaze dropped to her mouth, then lifted again. Now I see bending might be the only thing that keeps us whole. The wind tugged at her hair. She stepped closer, slow, deliberate. His scent wrapped around her, pine smoke, warm skin, the faint metallic trace of healing blood. Her wolf stirred, not in warning, but recognition. Thorn's hand lifted, hesitant, brushed a strand from her cheek. Fingers lingered, tracing the line of her jaw. No rush, no demand. Just the slow slide of calloused skin on skin. Lyra's breath caught. She tilted her face up. Their eyes held long, searching. Then she closed the distance. The kiss was quiet at first, lips brushing, tentative, testing, then deeper, slow unfolding. His hand cupped the back of her neck, thumb stroking the pulse there. Hers slid to his chest, over the steady beat beneath bandages. Warmth spread, his heat, her heat, shared breath tasting faintly of mint and iron. No urgency, just presence. The world narrowed to mouth on mouth, fingers threading hair, the soft sound of wind and heartbeat. When they parted, foreheads rested together. Eyes closed. Neither spoke. The kiss lingered between them, small, seismic. A shout from below shattered the moment. Guards dragged a man in gray cloak through the courtyard. Spy caught slipping messages to Vesper's old captains. Thorn straightened instantly. Lyra stepped back, composure returning like armor. They descended together. The man knelt in the hall, defiant. The Queen Mother was right. Peace makes us weak. The border clans are ready. Thorn cut him off. They won't be. Voice calm, final. Guards hauled the man away. Thorn issued orders, reinforce patrols, summon clan elders, offer amnesty before force. No rage, no burst, just clarity. Lyra watched him. The king who once crushed rebellion, without blinking, now chose containment over blood. Subtle, profound. That evening, she returned to her chambers. The wardrobe stood open, trunks half-packed. Peace was secured, the marriage clause dissolved, no longer required. Her people safe, her duty done. She folded a gown with careful hands, movements mechanical. Thorn appeared in the doorway, silent, watching. She didn't turn. I thought I'd leave at first light. He stepped inside, closed the door softly. You could. She smoothed the fabric. I could. Silence. Then his voice low. Stay. Not command, not plea. Something rower. Not because of treaty, not because of duty. Stay because, he stopped, swallowed. Because this place is colder without you. Lyra turned, met his eyes, saw the man, not the conqueror, not the poisoned wolf, just Thorn, tired, hopeful, human. She set the gown down. As Lyra stood with her hand on the open trunk, moonlight falling across half-packed belongings, Thorn waited in the doorway, silent, steady. Would she close the lid and walk away? Or would she choose the fragile new life, taking root here? Moonlight sliced across the open trunk like a blade. Lyra folded the last gown with deliberate care, fingers lingering on silk the color of deep forest. The room smelled of cedar and wax, her chambers, never quite home, yet marked by her now. Books stacked on the windowsill, a small southern flower pressed between pages. Peace was signed, temples protected. No forced union. She could walk away at dawn, return south with her people's dignity intact. Duty fulfilled, yet her hands moved slower with each fold, as though the cloth resisted leaving. Thorn stood in the doorway silent, unmoving. He hadn't knocked, just appeared, cloak still dusted with night frost from the battlements. His presence filled the space without effort, quiet gravity. She felt it before she saw him. Pine smoke, warm skin, the faint metallic trace of healing wounds. She didn't turn. You're supposed to be resting. I rested enough. Voice low, rough at the edges. He stepped inside. Door closed softly behind him. You're leaving, not question. Statement. Lyra smoothed the gown one last time. The treaty holds. My people are safe. There's no reason to stay. He crossed the room in 3 strides, slow, measured. Stopped just behind her. Close enough, she felt his warmth at her back, but not touching. There is. She finally looked at him over her shoulder. His eyes, emerald, unguarded, held hers. No command. No royal weight. Just a man asking. Stay, he said quietly. The word carried no thunder. Only honesty. Not for alliance. Not for obligation. Stay because, he swallowed, voice dropped lower. Because I don't want to wake up in this castle and find it empty of you. Lyra's breath hitched. She turned fully, searched his face, the scars, the lines carved by years of war and guilt, the quiet hope flickering beneath. Her wolf stirred, not in defense, but longing. She opened her mouth, words caught. A small voice broke the silence. Families don't walk away. Alara stood in the doorway, nightgown trailing, bare feet on cold stone, eyes bright, determined. She stepped forward, small hand reaching for Lyra's. You're part of us now, you and Thorn and me. She looked between them. Papa always said, when you find people who show up, you show up too. Lyra's throat closed. She knelt slowly, eye level with the child. Alara's mismatched gaze held steady, no pleading, just certainty. Then the air shimmered. Alara's free hand lifted, almost surprised. Soft blue light bloomed from her palm, gentle as dawn. It spread, warm, wrapping them in quiet radiance. The room faded. A clearing appeared, not the one of betrayal, but softer. Sun-dappled, Marcus stood there tall, plain-faced, eyes one hazel, one blue. No blood, no pain, just peace. He smiled at Alara, first proud, tender. Then at Thorn. A nod, forgiveness given freely. Finally at Lyra. His gaze warmed. He placed a hand over his heart, then extended it toward them, open, blessing. The vision held a heartbeat longer, then dissolved. Light faded. Alara blinked, hand dropping. "He's happy," she whispered, "for us." Tears slipped down Lyra's cheeks, silent, unbidden. She looked at Thorn, saw the same shimmer in his eyes, raw gratitude, relief. Marcus's ghost had released something in him, in all of them. Lyra rose, closed the trunk with a soft click. "I'm staying." Thorn exhaled, shaky, almost disbelieving. His hand found hers, fingers laced, warm, steady. Alara slipped between them, small arms wrapping both waists. A family, fragile, scarred, real, standing in moonlight. Whispers of wedding plans began the next day. Quiet ones. No grand spectacle. A simple rite in the old chapel, southern and northern rites woven together. Lyra chose her own gown, emerald, not white. Thorn wore no crown, just the man. But peace is never without cost. That night, as they walked the lower gardens, Alara asleep upstairs, stars sharp overhead, a shadow moved, southern cloak, blade glinted, assassin loyalist remnant, sent before the treaty ink dried. The knife flashed toward Thorn's back. Lyra reacted first, will fast. She shoved him aside, spun, caught the wrist. Bone cracked. The man grunted. Thorn surged up, arm around the assassin's throat, pinning him to earth. Guards shouted, running. Alara's window above flew open. Small face appeared. Her hands glowed brighter now, instinctive. Blue light arced down, wrapping the assassin's blade arm. He screamed pain, then stillness. The knife dropped, harmless. Guards seized him, dragged him away. Thorn rose, breathing hard. Looked at Lyra, then up at Alara. The girl's light faded. She waved once, small, brave, then disappeared inside. Lyra met Thorn's gaze. One last test. He reached for her hand, pulled her close, forehead to forehead. We passed. As the assassin was hauled into the dark, Thorn held Lyra tight under the stars, Alara's window glowing softly above, blade drawn, family tested. Would this fragile new beginning survive the final shadow at its edge? The blade caught moonlight, sharp, silent, aimed straight for Thorn's heart. The southern assassin lunged from the garden shadows, cloak whipping like a raven's wing. No warning cry, just the glint of steel and the soft hiss of breath held too long. Thorn twisted, instinct, not fear, arm sweeping up to block. The knife scraped across leather, sparking. Lyra moved faster. She stepped between them, wolf grace uncoiling, hand snapping out to seize the assassin's wrist. Bone cracked. The man grunted, blade dropping. Thorn's fist connected with jaw, clean, controlled. The assassin staggered. Above, a window flew open. Alara's small face appeared, eyes wide. Her hands lifted, instinct, no thought. Blue light flared, brighter than before, arcing down like a falling star. It wrapped the assassin's arms, pinning them to his sides. He thrashed once, futile, then went still. Breath ragged, magic holding him like invisible chains. Guards poured from the arches, swords drawn. They took him down in seconds. Iron manacles clinked, dragged away. The garden fell quiet again. Only wind in the evergreens and 3 heartbeats fast, then slowing. Thorn turned first, reached for Lyra. His hand found her arm, steadying, checking. "You're unhurt," she nodded once. Looked up at Alara. The girl's light faded. She leaned out the window, small hands gripping the sill. "I did it," she whispered, not triumph, quiet wonder. Thorn lifted his gaze to her. "You kept us safe." Alara's lip trembled. Then she smiled, small, real. They climbed the stairs together. No words needed. Alara met them at the landing, bare feet cold on stone. She slipped between them, Thorn's hand on one shoulder, Lyra's on the other. A unit. Unspoken. The small chapel waited at dawn. No banners, no court, just stone walls softened by early light. A single candle burning on the altar. The northern rite master stood beside the southern priestess, 2 voices, 1 purpose. Thorn wore no crown, only a simple tunic, scars visible at collar and cuff. Lyra chose emerald wool, color of new leaves, not royal white. Alara stood between, nightgown traded for a clean dress, mismatched eyes shining. Vows were quiet. Thorn spoke first. Voice low, steady. "I take you, Lyra, not as prize or alliance, but as partner, as equal, as the one who showed me mercy can be strength." He paused, swallowed. "I promise to stand beside you, to listen, to choose kindness when instinct says strike." Lyra met his eyes. "I take you, Thorn, not as conqueror, but as the man who knelt in snow for a child, who learned to bend. I promise to walk with you, to remind you when you forget your own worth, to build with you, not for you." The rite master bound their hands with cord, green and silver twined. The priestess spoke the blessing. "May your house be hearth, not fortress." Alara stepped forward, placed her small hands over theirs. Blue light shimmered, soft, warm, not command, gift. "And I promise to be your family," she said simply. "Always." The light faded, cord removed. Rings exchanged, plain bands, etched with oak leaves. No fanfare, just 3 people breathing the same air. Later, much later, firelight danced in the private chamber. Snow fell outside the tall windows, silent and steady. Alara sat between them on the wide rug, back against the settee, knees drawn up. Thorn's arm rested along the cushion behind her. Lyra leaned into his side, natural now, unthinking. Alara traced patterns in the rug with 1 finger. "Papa's proud," she said quietly. Not question, certainty. Thorn's hand found Lyra's, fingers laced. He looked at her over Alara's head. "I need you," he said, voice rough, honest. "Not as queen, not as duty, as home." Lyra turned her palm up, met his grip. "You already are," Alara yawned, curled tighter between them. Thorn lifted her gently, small weight against his chest, and carried her to the bed in the corner. Tucked blankets around her, kissed her forehead. Lyra followed, brushed a curl from the sleeping girl's cheek. They stood there a moment, watching her breathe. Safe. Back by the fire, Thorn pulled Lyra close. arms around her waist. She rested her head on his shoulder. Snowflakes tapped glass, soft, persistent. Inside, warmth held. Scars remained on skin in memory, but they no longer defined the shape of things. Kindness had rebuilt what war broke. Quietly, steadily, outside, snow continued to fall, blanketing the world in white silence. Inside, firelight warmed 3 souls bound by choice, not blood. Scars lingered, yes. But what future would they build from the quiet strength they had finally learned to trust? Epilogue. A new dawn years had softened the edges of the black stone castle. Vines climbed where once only frost clung. Windows stood open to summer air, carrying voices instead of silence. The fortress no longer loomed like a predator. It sheltered. Inside its walls, children ran barefoot through corridors once patrolled by armored guards. Refugees who had arrived broken now worked side by side with northern-born bakers, healers, storytellers. Mercy had taken root, quiet and stubborn. Alara walked the infirmary at 19, no longer small. Her hair fell in dark waves, one hazel eye, one blue still mismatched, still a quiet mark of the father she carried in every gentle touch. The blue glow came easier now, trained and sure. She knelt beside an old soldier whose leg had never properly healed after the last border skirmish. Her palms hovered. Light bloomed soft, steady. Muscle knit beneath skin. Pain lines eased from his face. He exhaled long tears tracking silently. "Thank you, princess." She smiled, small, private. Just Alara. Outside, the kingdom breathed differently. Thorn and Lyra ruled from the same high seat, but the throne felt less like a monument to conquest and more like a shared bench. Decrees were discussed in open council, not issued from shadowed rooms. Taxes eased for the southern provinces. Temples stood unmolested, their rites sung in both tongues. When disputes rose, Thorn listened first, scarred hands folded, green eyes patient. Lyra spoke second, clear, unflinching, reminding them all that strength without compassion was only noise. They walked the battlements most evenings, not as conqueror and captive, but as 2 people who had chosen each other again and again. Tonight the sky burned gold at the edges. Thorn leaned on the parapet, shoulder brushing hers. "You still look south sometimes," he said quietly. Lyra followed his gaze. Distant hills, green now where they had once smoked. "I look everywhere. This is home too." She turned her head, met his eyes. "You," he exhaled. "I look at you, and her. That's enough compass." A small laugh escaped her, rare, unguarded. He caught it like something precious. His hand found hers, fingers lacing without thought. Scars on his knuckles brushed her skin. She squeezed once. They stood in silence, wind moving through their hair. 2 wolves who had learned to lie down beside the fire instead of circling it. Alara found them there later, grown tall, but still carrying the same quiet certainty. She slipped between them, old habit. Thorn's arm came around her shoulders. Lyra's hand rested on her back. They watched the sun sink together. No words, just presence. The next morning, Alara walked alone to the north road. The oak marker still stood gnarled, ancient, roots deep in frozen earth. Someone, perhaps villagers grateful, perhaps children she had healed, had carved a small plaque at its base. Simple letters for Marcus. He waited. He was found. Snow no longer fell here in summer, but the air still carried winter's memory. Alara knelt, ran her fingers over the bark where she had waited as a child, cold, hungry, certain. She smiled, soft, private. "Papa found me," she whispered, through them. Wind moved through leaves. Somewhere overhead, a hawk circled high, free. Alara rose, turned back toward the castle, toward the family she had helped forge, not by blood, but by choice, by showing up, by refusing to walk away. Inside the great hall that evening, firelight warmed 3 figures at the long table, Thorn at one end, Lyra at the other, Alara between, laughing at something quiet Thorn had murmured. A servant set bread and stew, simple, shared. No crowns, no ceremony, just a meal. Outside, snow began again, first flakes of the coming season. Soft, persistent, covering old scars on the land. Inside, the fire crackled. Thorn reached across the table, took Lyra's hand. Alara laid hers on top, small over large, scarred over smooth. 3 hands joined. Light flickered across their faces, warm, steady. Kindness doesn't weaken, it rebuilds, quietly. One small act at a time. The end. Thank you for joining Nightbond Narratives on this journey. If this story moved you, if it made you feel the ache of waiting, the weight of guilt, the slow miracle of choosing kindness, please hit that like button. Share it with someone who needs to hear it, and drop a comment below. Who in your life showed up when you needed them most? What would you have done in Alara's place, or Thorn's? Does mercy feel like strength to you, or like risk? Your thoughts keep these stories alive. Subscribe if you want more tales that reach past the surface and touch what's human beneath. Until next time, keep showing up. Nightbond Narratives. If you were in Alara's place, waiting alone in the snow, trusting a stranger who could destroy you, would you have approached the king? If you were Thorn, carrying guilt like a second skin, would you have knelt or walked away? And if you were Lyra, hating the man who broke your world, would you have stayed to rebuild it with him? This story lives in those questions. I felt every one of them while writing it, the fear, the hope, the slow opening of a guarded heart. That's why I wrote it. To remind us all that redemption isn't loud. It's quiet, persistent, and worth every risk.